Senior political analyst Britt Hume is here again tonight. Good evening, Britt. You know, when a candidate says something on the campaign trail, it's one thing that he's considering or she's considering one thing or another. When a president says it, it gets a lot of attention.
You know, Donald Trump seems to be learning a lot of things on the job, and the one thing he doesn't seem fully yet to have learned, Brett, is how big a megaphone he has in his hand whenever he speaks, and however he speaks, wherever he speaks. And the consequences of an offhand comment can be extraordinary, as the previous reporting by our colleagues suggests. You know, the idea that we'd have an invitation to various thuggish dictators around the world to come to the White House, the possibility of a gas tax, and on, and it's something that I guess he's continuing to learn.
Yeah. So let's go back to North Korea and that possible invite. If the conditions are right, he said, for a one-on-one meeting, he said he'd be honored to meet with Kim Jong-un.
Yeah, it's pretty hard to imagine him being really honored to meet this character. I suppose you and I, Brett, could imagine some land of milk and honey in which we've arrived, at which North Korea has laid down its arms and stopped its intimidation of South Korea with the massive military presence it has right on the South Korean border. And I suppose at that time some kind of a meeting between the two presidents could occur, although it's pretty hard to picture that. But I think, Brett, there is a discernible strategy here, and it's pretty well been laid out by the previous reports, which is a combination of carrots and sticks. You know, we put the military assets into the region, say nothing about whether or not we may or might not use them, but certainly don't take the military option off the table. Get all the help we can possibly get from China, which is probably the linchpin of all this, and at the same time suggest that if North Korea behaves itself, there could be good things in store. That all seems to me to be completely reasonable, particularly in light of the fact, Brett, that the military option is, for all intents and purposes, been off the table for some time.
Yeah, and he's obviously reaching out to allies besides China, even to the fact of possibly inviting the Philippines leader Duterte, who's very controversial about lack of human rights and killings in his own country, to the White House.
Yeah, it looks like he didn't. That invitation was not accepted, at least not yet. And it's not clear how much help Duterte will be in this effort to form this circle of allies around North Korea and in that region. But I think it makes diplomatic sense to try to get as many countries together in a kind of a diplomatic/military coalition as you can, to let it be known to the North Korean dictator that he's surrounded. But when you get down to it, Brett, I think it really all comes down to China. China, because of the trade situation there and because of the proximity to North Korea, really has all the leverage that we wish we had, and we can only hope that they will exercise.
Last thing, on the domestic policy, I mean, the talk of a gas tax for infrastructure, we've heard this many, many times before, and it's sort of like Lucy and the football and Charlie Brown. It is always pulled away because Republicans never want to go down that road. And then breaking up big banks. That's another big hurdle for Congress, both things.
Well, yeah, I don't think this is probably the right moment for him to further stuff the legislative pipeline. I mean, he's got a couple of big lumps in there now in the form of the health care or health insurance reform measure and tax reform that he's got to get passed that are really quite central to his agenda before he starts talking about anything like this. I mean, you look at the gas tax, that is hugely controversial. It's very regressive. It falls hardest on the people who have the least and are struggling to get to jobs every day and so on. It's a regressive tax by its nature, and of course breaking up the banks, that might be a good idea depending on how it was done, but it's hard to imagine he could even dream of getting anything like that moving through Congress anywhere in the near future.
Brett, as always, thank you.
Thank you, Brett.